This is the Simpit. I'm your host Devin Booth, and today we're taking a look at the RealGear GT Pro1-S Triple Overhung Mounted Wilwood Edition 3-pedal set from Ricmotech. To clear things up right away, we're going to go ahead and refer to these units as the Ricmotech Wilwood GT Pro or RealGear inverted pedals from this point forward. Starting off, let's provide some perspective. I've personally used all of Thrustmaster's current pedal lineup. This includes the 2-pedal set, the T3PA Pro and Non-Pros, and the TLCMs. And I had also done the upgrade to the T3PA Pros at some point to add the Ricmotech load cell. So while my experience is limited, I do have a solid frame of reference for comparing these to consumer-grade pedals, and we'll be using feedback from the pit crew to formulate my opinion against the enthusiast-grade products that these RealGear inverted pedals are truly competing with. Now with that out of the way, let's get started with the review. As soon as I began unpacking this pedal set, I was immediately struck with the sense that I was dealing with true automotive-grade equipment. And I was. Ricmotech set out to create the, and I quote, most realistic set of sim racing pedals. And in doing so, they used the actual Wilwood pedal arms and mounts. And I mean the actual you can put this in your car Wilwood pedal assembly. Both the clutch and brake use real pneumatic master cylinders with the pressure sensors instead of potentiometers to read the positioning of the pedals as accurately as possible. But I am getting a little ahead of myself here, so we'll back it up real quick. Now, unpacking these pedals, you're immediately presented with an obviously top-of-the-line build quality. Solid metal arms and mounts, springs that appear as durable, and everything mounted with a thick, solid nuts, bolts, and washers. We're dealing with a top-notch piece of kit here, so let's take some time to go through each pedal individually and to give ourselves a real understanding of how each pedal operates. Now we'll start with the clutch. Now, the clutch is going to see less use than the other pedals, and is arguably the least important in terms of feel. But there are sim racers, myself included, that would drive exclusively H-pattern vehicles if it were possible. And for us, what I just opened with would be considered blasphemy. And Ricmotech was very aware of this when designing their system. Opting for a more race car approach, they decided to use an empty master cylinder with a crazy tight spring setup that simulates a diaphragm spring present in real race cars. This gives you a stiff initial push that gradually lessens as the pedal is pressed. So while you're not going to feel that bite point that you do in your road cars at home, the pedal does exactly as it should otherwise. For me, the subtle difference in pressure from that initial press to the pedal being fully engaged was surprisingly noticeable and satisfying. I had pretty negative feelings toward this system initially, being that my driving experience in the real world is almost exclusively related to your typical road cars, but after running a few starts in various sims, I found it the perfect balance of realism and performance in sim. Now, we should note, though most sim racers are aware, that each driving sim treats the clutch differently, some acting like a on-off switch, while others attempting to simulate some slip via an analog system. This means that if the RealGear pedal set succeeded in creating an engagement point, that you'd need to perfectly calibrate the pedals for each sim that you're using. Whereas the approach that they took lets you learn the bite point based on the increasing forces as you depress the pedal, which is very similar to how you would learn a new car in the real world, minus that feeling of engagement, but it is individual to the car. This was a pleasant surprise, and since settling into these pedals, I would actually be hard-pressed to get me to switch out this clutch. Even if someone used a linkage system to fully emulate a road car, the thought of having to figure out each sim and how that type of system would react to the on-off implementations leaves me considering this RealGear system as one of, if not, the best available. For the brake pedal, we are treated to the RealGear attention to detail once more. Ricmotech has specially designed the attached slave cylinder to accurately replicate the feeling of a hydraulic system, which it is, albeit on a small scale. When you purchase these pedals new, the brake is shipped filled with brake fluid and tied so you don't have to bleed the system on the setup. You just let them sit at a 45-degree angle with the slave cylinder lower than the master for a good 15 minutes before installation, and this is just to avoid having to pull them off if some bubbles did manage to work their way into the system during shipping. Now, if by chance you do need to bleed and top up or even empty and refill the system, it's pretty dead easy, just like on a car, but on a scale that you can work on at your desk. The hardest part is pumping the brake when it's not attached to the rig. Even then, it's not that bad though when the cap's off because you're not dealing with a pressurized system. Right now, she's quite a bit of a pain in the butt. Moving on to the performance of the system itself, I can't overstate the sense of immersion these pedals bring to the rig. Keeping in mind that my favorite cars are your more accessible race-tuned or race-ready road-going vehicles, I hopped into a Boobaroo in Dirt Rally 2 for my initial testing in, well...
This Boobaroo's playing! Come down the trail, look at that Subaru! Look at that! What?
And as I continued testing in other sims, I continued to be impressed. The overall feel of the brake was excellent. The change in pressure from the beginning to the end of the throw, the swing of the arm matching my leg movement exactly as expected. I have to repeat myself here, I cannot overstate the sense of immersion you get with this pedal. And depending on what type of vehicles you're driving or what standard you like to set in terms of pressure, you can actually even use the optional brake tuning kit to get things exactly as you like. I personally have the stepped black but firm spacer in place for a stiff but almost realistically squishy sensation, as close to what you'd get out of an older but well taken care of road car as I could manage. But there is a hard black spacer that will give you something akin to an F1 car's brake, or you could even use the orange spacers to give you something like a teenager's secondhand drift car or Sean's Datsun. The throttle is what you would expect at this point. A strong adjustable spring for tension, natural swing and throw, with a linear sensor to convert everything for the PC. With these pedals, everything is adjustable in terms of their physical start and end points. The pressure of the brake and throttle can both be changed to suit the car, and the pedal faces match their respective functions, meaning that the brake and clutch pedals use identical, almost square pedal faces, with the throttle using an L shape to facilitate heel-toe shifting. The mechanics of these pedals leave nothing to be desired. Everything that you could adjust in a real car is present, and if you need further adjustment, you can do so during the mounting process. They're exactly what I wanted, and far beyond what I expected. Now with the mechanics out of the way, let's move on to the brain of the unit. Talk some software. Now, honestly, this is where my review gets a bit tricky. The RealGear inverted pedals use a literal ECU, electronic control unit, and while I see the merit of such a system, I would like to see some software from them in the long run. This is pretty easy to navigate the system as long as you've got the manual up. I mean, you just press the 1 and 2 buttons, certain combinations, desired effect, but I can see a lot of the younger crowd preferring a simple graphical user interface just packaged with the drivers. This is a pretty small gripe concerning the performance though, so all in all I'm still impressed. The black box they give you as a controller is simple, it's small, it's easy to mount, with cables coming out in a central direction, so the cable management in that respect is as easy as possible. Lengths of the cables are such that they should fit on any chassis with little slack left over, and I mean, speaking of cable management, with this done we might as well move on to mounting them. I don't think this will come as a surprise, but you're going to want to be prepared when purchasing any inverted pedal set, let alone something that's using literal car parts as its base. That said, if you're running an 80/20 chassis, you're probably going to be fine. A couple of uprights and 2 cross members will have you set up and running in no time, though I would have a set of horizontal braces going from the pedal mount to the wheel deck would probably be a good idea as you're putting a lot of twisting force on these guys. Now I did the usual myself, I dev engineered myself a box to put them in, and I'll be revisiting my design shortly to create something more permanent as I was mostly concerned with just getting them in. They're in the right position for now. I've been taking measurements as I've been working on this review, and we'll post updated photos of the chassis in the rig section in our community's Discord when I'm settled on that front. So don't forget to check the links below if you're interested in seeing some of the progress on my old Woody as it continues to evolve. That said, if you've got yourself a tube frame chassis, you're going to need to seriously consider what you're doing before you mount something like these before making your purchase. It's not that hard to design a frame, and you can purchase a mount from Ricmotech for their AP Extreme Series chassis, then modify it to work with what you have, but just do yourself a favor, measure twice. I would hate to see someone purchase these pedals on my recommendation or Sean's, only to find out that they can't possibly mount. It's been a month since these pedals arrived at my doorstep, and in that time I've quite literally fallen in love. I'm still of the mindset that you shouldn't just run out and put your rent down on a set of sim racing pedals, but if you've got the disposable income or if you want something to save for, the RealGear GT Pro1-S inverted pedals are absolutely something to consider. The sense of realism that you're able to enjoy, and the control that comes along with it, makes these pedals stand out as one of the best pedal options on the market. Now, if you're hung up on hanging pedals, there aren't a lot of options out there, in which case I'd actually say these are the best option available. I can say, at least for me, that I won't even be considering an upgrade unless something breaks, in which case I'm more likely to contact Ricmotech for repairs than actually go looking for a comparable set. And right from my first experience with them, they felt natural, as though I was driving a well set up car. The throttle moves exactly as expected, with a smooth and consistent throw. The pedal face is smooth, but has holes in it to facilitate the correct amount of grip when pressure is applied, and when I need to get the power down, everything works as intended. When I need to modulate for traction, again, it just works. The same can be said for the brake. The gradual increase in pressure feels natural when releasing the pedal and when pressing it, and it does truly feel like a hydraulic system that you're used to seeing in real vehicles. When I need to trail brake into a corner, carefully modulating the brake pedal in order to keep the right amount of weight on the front of the car, everything feels natural. From the sway of the arm itself to the pressure involved in during actuation, again, everything just works. The face on the clutch and the brake, they're both textured in such a way that they provide great grip when using the pedals, but also allow for intended slip during operation. And again, both the throw and sway of each pedal is exactly as expected. And to be honest, there's not much more to say. So with that in mind, we're gonna wrap this thing up. You may have noticed now that I've not mentioned the price, and that's because I didn't pay for them, so I really don't have a right to say anything, but I'll say a little anyway. First off, a super generous pit crew member caught wind of me really wanting these pedals and shipped them up to Canada so I could enjoy them. And I can't thank that individual enough. These were literally on my list as the endgame pedals, my dream piece of equipment, the last piece of kit I planned to purchase. So again, a big thank you there. Now, on the price, I will say this. Listed at $1,300 US, they're a big ask, but for this level of immersion, I still think it's worth it. And as I said, these were the pedals that I planned on purchasing to finish off my rig, and after having used them, I still stand by that. If you're looking to finish off a rally-themed setup, they should be at the top of your list. If you're looking to simulate muscle cars, they should be at the top of your list. And if you're looking to get slidey in a drift car, top of your list. Basically anything that runs hanging pedals, these should be at the top of your list. And that's that. I've really nothing but positive things to say about the RealGear inverted pedals. If you force me to come up with a con, I'd say that they could use a better name for marketing purposes. The RealGear GT Pro1-S Overhung Mounted Wilwood Edition 3-pedal set from Ricmotech is just too many words to say, and it doesn't really roll off the tongue. But when the worst feeling you get from a product comes from its name, I mean, you can't really complain. I do think it hurts the initial impression, and that's maybe why we weren't able to find any other reviews on them. But in the end, we got it done. The resource is there for you to enjoy. I'm plenty happy with them. So as far as I'm concerned, win's a win and a win is a win, boys. Let's button this one up. First off, a quick thank you to our patrons, as listed behind me. If you'd like to get your name up on there, or if you'd like to see what's going on behind the scenes in our patron Discord, please check out patreon.com/thesimpit to get signed up. You can also take a look at our extra perks there, and you'd be doing the pit crew a service, as the patron program is the fuel to the motor that keeps the wheels turning here at the pits. You can also support us by liking the video, sharing it with your friends, and subscribing to the channel. That said, it's time for me to get to work on the next part of my series on sim racing history. So stay tuned for that, and of course, as I mentioned in that video, if you have pictures of you guys driving in the 80s, toss them down below. That's all for me. I'm Devin Booth. This is the Simpit, and we'll see you